Alright, hello again everybody! Welcome to Splash Studio Online. Today we are going to be painting California Sunrise. My name is Sid, I'm going to be your lead artist today. If you guys want to change anything up as usual, do feel free to do so. Have fun with this, get creative. I'm going to be keeping mine as close to the original as I can, so I'll be doing this, but again, feel free to change up the sky colors, change up the flowers, do whatever you gotta do. You are also welcome to pause this video at any time. You'll hear me mention that very sporadically throughout the video, so feel free to do that. But yeah, we're gonna get started. So, with the materials you guys have, we're gonna be using all of the colors today. So all of the ones that you have, you can see I've already used my palette a couple times. That's a-okay. And then you can take those brushes out of those beautiful Gucci rags they are wrapped in and fill up that water cup with water, this black cup right here. To start, you guys, you're going to want to stick all of your brushes bristle side down into this water so that way they stay nice and fresh and you can clean them throughout the entirety of the painting. So, for the very first step though, I'm going to be taking the largest out of the four, so this large flat brush looks like this. I like to dab it off on that Gucci rag just to let it dry a little bit so that way I don't have paint dipping down my canvas. And to start, I'm going to be mixing a little bit of white and yellow together to create a nice light yellow. I'm going to be using a bit more white than yellow, and I'm going to start just sort of adding in random patches of yellow to my sky and the water. So to do this, we've got the sky kind of going up at an angle here. It looks like the wind's blowing in that direction, and then the water is a little bit flatter. So I am going to start placing in some angled patches of yellow, this pale yellow color. Just spreading this around. And I'm not really worrying too much about the placement or how covered my canvas is. We're going to be adding another color shortly here. Alright, but once it gets to the point where I want the water to be, I'm going to start kind of just keeping these as long strokes horizontally. So once you guys are done with that, we are going to mix a light orange, so orange and white. And then using this light orange, blending it out with some of those other colors. So same brush, same technique, filling in the areas in between. If they blend a little bit, that's okay. You can also go back in with a little bit of just pure white and create some brighter areas. Do keep in mind, we will be adding in the clouds later on, so don't worry too much if this isn't your favorite texture or favorite color or anything. We will be going in and adding more. So it's okay if it's a little bit patchy, it's okay if it blends and isn't quite the best at the moment. No hard feelings, no worries there. If you guys want, you can even create a bit of an orangey yellow mixture to kind of add in. I kind of like to do that sometimes. And I'm kind of going back in with these in this bottom area, and I'm turning my brush to the side to just get a bit of a longer sort of stroke. As you guys can see, I'm not really too concerned about this bottom area here. We will be covering that up in a moment, so just working on adding in these colors as you would like. As you guys can see, I'm just going to kind of go back in with some white and create some lighter areas of my sky and blend it out with those other colors that I've already got going on. Alright, So once you guys have the sky done, we are going to move on to the green down here. That's going to be just where the grasses are. We'll be adding in the mountains and more green later on, but we're going to start with this dark green part. So to do that, I'm switching. I switched to my smaller flat brush, and I'm going to take just some blue and yellow to get a nice dark green shade. Feel free to add a little bit of black if you would like, if you want it just a tad bit darker. A little black goes a long way though, so only use a little bit at a time. You can always make it darker. It's hard to go lighter though if you make it too dark. But then using your flat brush and this green, I'm just going to go and fill in this bottom part here. It doesn't need to be a perfect line. Like I mentioned previously, we are going to be adding in more mountains, and we are going to be covering this with a few other things. So really just putting the base color down at this point. And again, like I said, you're welcome to take a little bit of black, put a little bit of black in there. It might help darken it up. Alright, so once you guys have this much put in and you're ready, I would recommend taking a bit of a break just to let the background dry. So take about 5 or 10 minutes. Feel free to pause the video here, and we'll get moving with the next step once you guys come back. Alright you guys, so once you are ready and the background is completely dry, we're going to move on to those beautiful blue clouds. So to do that, I switched to my larger round brush, so this guy right here, and I mixed blue and red and a little bit of black. So if you want, I'd mix the red and black first and then add a lot of blue in. You don't want it to be super purpley, but just a little bit darker than what blue and black would make. And all I'm going to be doing is on this left top part of my canvas is I'm going to be going in and making some diagonal brush strokes, letting some of that color peep through that we had before. Just going in and sporadically adding in shadows of some of these clouds. Now, wherever you kind of feel like placing these is totally fine. If you want more clouds in your sky, go for it. You want fewer clouds, that's a-okay. I'm just sort of concentrating the darker areas to one side of my canvas. Alright, you can also use this dark blue to sort of sketch out wherever you want your horizon line to be. So I'm just going to very, very carefully and lightly sketch this out. It does not need to be perfect or anything like that. And then do feel free to sort of incorporate some of this dark shading into the water. We are going to go back over it with some other colors, so feel free to add it really wherever you see fit. Alright. So something similar to that, again, you guys can feel free to adjust this accordingly to yourselves. Maybe you want this to come out a little bit more, kind of like the original artist. I like to just do these long-ish sporadic strokes. I think it makes it look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more organic. Just adding this in as you would like. Next, we're going to add a little bit of white to that blue. So blue, red, black, and a little bit of white. Alright, we just want it slightly lighter than what we had before. And so then all we're going to do is just be going in and adding in some of this. I need more white on that. Adding in some of this lighter blue underneath couple of those. And you can kind of put in more clouds. Maybe some are just this light shade, don't have much of that darker color. Totally fine. Feel free to add this color into your water too. Again, I recommend not having it cover up everything too much. You don't want to get rid of the colors that we've already got in there. Once you guys are done with that, feel free to add even more white. We're going to put some highlights into that. If you want to use that same like periwinkle color is what it would be now, go for it. But you can also just use white and blue together. So I'm just going to come in with this light blue. I need more white. And just add in some lighter shades as some highlights. I'm also going to go in and add some of this to the water, again using some horizontal strokes. So once you guys are done with that, feel free to let this dry a little bit. Keep working on it though if you guys would like. I tended to make mine a little bit longer. I like longer clouds, but you can make yours shorter. Go for it. Keep up the good work. Feel free to pause the video though to let that dry for a few minutes, and we are going to be moving on whenever you are ready, so feel free to hit play. Alright everybody, so once you guys are ready to move on, we are going to start adding in the mountains. So to start, I'm using my larger round brush. Now you can use this one or the smaller one, whatever makes you more comfortable. I'm going to start though by painting in my horizon line. So right wherever you want these to be, I'm going to start kind of just right along this top part, a little bit up from where I made the initial line. And I'm just going to let my hand sort of create some big mountain shapes. And just sort of letting that trail off as it continues. Now I'm not going all the way over to the edge of my canvas because we will be covering it up later on, but you're welcome to come back in and fill this in just until it reaches that line you made previously. So something similar to that. Next, what we're going to do is add the one in the front of our painting. So same thing, I'm going to start at the top wherever I want my top point of that hill to be. And I'm just going to drag it down until it meets my green. Now I don't have a whole lot of my water showing, that is okay. You can have it covering up more, maybe there's a part you don't like, but all we're going to be doing then at that point is filling this in with that dark brown. So just brown and black together and filling this in. Once you guys have the base of your mountains or hills in, we're going to add a little bit of a highlight. So we're going to do a medium in between color before we get the lightest shade. So same brush, I cleaned it off and I'm using pure brown this time. And I'm just going to kind of come in here and add some brown as like a medium tone to kind of have in between this and the highlights once we add those in. So if you want your lighter brown to be more visible, I would recommend waiting. I don't really care at the moment, so I'm just going to go in and start just painting on top of my already wet paint. And as always, you guys, feel free to let this dry a little bit. If you don't like a certain part, go back to another color and go back in and blend it out or cover it up accordingly. So again, doing the same to these in the back. Mostly kind of focusing wherever I think some highlights would be more noticeable on my mountains. Once you're done with that, feel free to add a little bit of white to some brown. I'm not adding a ton, but just enough to make it a lighter shade than what I've already got. And right along the edges of the mountains, you're going to want to put some of this highlight in. So as you can see, it's not quite light enough, that's okay. I'm going to take a bit of brown and a lot more white and just keep it contained to that upper part. I'm also mainly focusing on areas that I think the sunlight would hit, so if you think they're not going to be seen or it's not going to be noticeable, then don't worry about it. It's probably not. So again, along the edge, areas that are most likely to get touched by sun. I also sometimes like to do a bit of a dabbing motion. I find it gets a fun texture. Alright. So as you guys can see, I'm just going to go back and forth, sort of blending these out. Alright, you guys, so now we're going to go in with our small flat brush, this one right here, the smaller version of the one we did the background with, and I'm going to mix a lighter green shade, so just green and yellow in this case. Alright, once you got a nice light green, we're just going to take this flat brush. You can use it either this way where it's big or have it this way so it's a thinner line, whatever you prefer. And I'm just going to kind of come in here and make some horizontal strokes to create some grass texture. Less is more in this case. You don't need a whole lot of paint for this. I like that it kind of shows some of that dark through. So I'm only going to be doing a little bit of this, not a whole lot, but just doing some short strokes. Again, feel free to switch between whatever position you want to hold it. I like this way a lot more though, personally, but that's just me. Going up to create some grass. Feel free to go in with some pure green too, if you guys would rather do that. Have a little bit more of that pure green in there. Go for it. If you want to use that darker green again to create some depth, totally fine too. I'm also going to switch to my small brush now, and I'm going to keep using some of that green, so that green and yellow mixture. So green and yellow, and I'm going to add a little bit of this to the bottom of the mountains. Feel free to use that darker green if you'd rather use that as well, maybe both colors to create a bit of depth. But just adding in some small forest. And since it's in the distance, you don't really need to worry about too much what it looks like. Unless you really, really want to, that's entirely up to you guys. But I think that looks pretty good. It looks like trees in the distance, so I'm gonna go with it. So feel free to pause the video at this point, just take a little bit of a break to let everything dry entirely. We are going to move on to the tree next, so we want at least the mountains and the grass down here to be a little bit more dry than it currently is. So feel free to stretch your legs, pause the video, and then resume playing whenever you're ready. Alright, you guys, so next we're going to start on the tree. So once everything is dry, I'm going to take my small detail brush, a little brush again, and I'm going going to start with the trunk of my tree. So all I'm going to be doing to start with is wherever you want your tree to be. This one tends to start off of the bottom of the canvas, so I'm going to just start right at the bottom of the canvas. And I'm going to start with this first right-hand tree. So that one's going to be a little bit shorter, at least on mine as well as the original. So I'm just going to start down here, and I'm going to let my hand sort of, when I have enough paint on it, create some sort of organic shape. So something like that. It doesn't need to be perfectly straight. As you can see, mine kind of curves, creating a general tree shape. And the fun thing about trees is that you don't need to really stress out about what they look like. Trees come in all shapes and sizes, and they grow around or through various other things. So feel free to play around with this. I'm just going back, thickening that up. So once I'm done with the right trunk of my tree, I'm going to move on to the next one. Make more paint here. Alright, the next one's going to come out from the same spot, so I'm going to move over just a little bit just so that I have a bit of space in between both of these, but I'm just going to start going up, away from this other one a little bit. And I'm making this a little bit straighter than the original did. You're welcome to do whatever you would like. I'm just sort of adjusting mine to the shape of the other part of my tree. So you guys will notice as you come up, you're going to want to kind of thin out your branches. I like to do that by getting some of the pressure, letting it off near the end of my branch. So now I'm going to kind of go in and sort of thicken up some of these areas here, thicken up the space in between both of these so that it has a nice sturdy base of my tree trunk. Feel free to go ahead and make this bigger if you find that it's still too spindly, totally fine. I'm going to start adding in some of the branches now. Branches are kind of interesting, so basically what you guys are going to want to do is they are thicker near the trunk of the tree and they get thinner as they come out. So I'm going to start, let's put one right over here, and I'm going to just bring it up, pushing down and gradually letting up on pressure on my brush as I go away. These do not need to be straight lines either. As you guys have probably seen outside, trees are very interesting and do a lot of fun things. So these are just here as anchor points to kind of let some of our trees and branches rest on, or leaves and branches, excuse me. If it helps, I like to think of Y shapes almost with this, kind of going out in various directions. It can go off the canvas if you want. Again, thickening up the edges as it gets near the trunk is going to be your best friend. It'll make it look a little bit more natural. Are going to want to do is you can either use pure brown, or I'm going to just mix some of that dark brown with some white, and I'm going to go in and add highlights on my tree. So to do that, I'm just going to take the same color we were using and add a little bit of white to make it kind of a gray brown. And now I'm going to focus this on the left side of my tree. So I'm going to just kind of go wherever I feel like highlights are going to be seen along this left edge, maybe in the trunk. Feel free to go on in there with some pure brown to blend it out. Alright, you guys, so once you are finished with that step, feel free to move on. I'm going to start with the sun next, and to do that I'm switching to my larger round brush, and I mixed a little bit of yellow with mostly white, so a nice light yellow color. And now wherever you want your sun to be peeking out through your clouds, we're going to start. I like to start using just a sort of a circle, and I sort of just swirl it around. I make a dot, swirl it around until I get the size of the sun that I am happy with. So something sort of like that right there. You can kind of see it's like that big. So what I'm going to do next is I'm switching to my small brush, and we're going to start with the sun rays. So I'm taking that same light yellow color to start. And I'm going to do one of the longest ones, going right up from the top and letting my brush kind of run out of paint. One of the longer ones going right down the bottom, right out the side, and right out the other side. And then you're just going to go in with various shades of yellow and white and just go in making some shorter rays, coming out. Vary them in size, thickness, opacity, whatever you want to do. Alright, so feel free to take a bit of a break at this point. If you want to add more highlights into anything, go back and fix anything up, do feel free. But we are going to take a little bit of a break just to let everything dry entirely before we get moving on to the final details. So feel free to pause the video and then resume whenever you are ready. Everybody. So once you are ready to add the flowers, we're going to start with the darker purple and then add some highlights. So to do that, I'm going to mix some red and blue together. So pretty equal parts red and blue. And all I'm going to be doing to do this part, you can switch between both of your round brushes, totally fine. But I'm going to start with the flowers closer to the bottom of my canvas. Those are going to be a lot larger than the ones in the back. So to start, I'm going to just take my large round brush and I'm going to do a couple short strokes to create a vague flower shape. So something along those lines. Feel free to add as many or as few. You can make it just be a dot if you want. Don't overthink these. They're just flowers and they come in all shapes and sizes just like our trees did. So again, just going in with pure blue and red, coming in here and adding some flowers. So I started with my biggest ones. If you guys would like to switch to your smaller, so I started with my larger ones. If you would like to switch to your tiny detail brush and go ahead and keep placing flowers in. They get slightly smaller as they go farther back on our canvas, so they'll become smaller and smaller the closer they get to that hill there. So feel free to go ahead and add as many or as few of these as you would like. I'm kind of just making dots at this point. When they get closer to my mountain range, I'm just going in and dotting at my canvas, not really thinking of an actual flower shape since they're farther away and out of focus. You can also do some short little just sporadic lines to just indicate there's color there, totally fine. Alright, so once you guys have that dark purple, I'm going to go in with a bit of white to make a lighter color purple. And then I'm going to take this lighter shade and go in and just add some of that. So same sort of technique, going in, adding a lighter purple to my flowers. And you don't have to do this with all of them. You can just make some white or light purple flowers. That's totally fine. Maybe you want to add some white ones in, like baby's breath. A-okay. As you guys can see, the main artist put a lot more highlights in his painting than I did, so add as many or as few as you would like. But I'm going to be moving on to the leaves next. Alright everybody, now we're going to start on the leaves. So I'm going to be mixing a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, and some yellow to get a darker green color. Alright. I am using my smaller flat brush for this step, and I mix, like I said, green, yellow, and blue to get a dark green. And this is the color I'm going to be shaping out the vast majority of my leaves with, so the tree shape essentially. So what we're going to do is wherever you place those branches, we're going to use those as some anchor points, a guide kind of. So I'm going to start with the top of my tree just because I find it easier to work from top to bottom, and I'm just going to come in and using my smaller flat brush, sporadically sort of dab at my canvas. You can also switch, if you don't like that small flat brush, to your larger round brush and do the same exact thing with that. So again, just sporadically dotting at your canvas. Less paint is more also in this case, just so that you can still see some of the clouds, you can still see through it, so it gives the illusion that it's actually leaves. You don't just see a solid color, so just kind of being able to see through some of it is a little good. So once you guys have your general greens in, you feel pretty content with the way it's looking, ready to add some highlights. Alright, so I'm going to mix some green and yellow together again to get a nice lime green. I'm going to put a lot more yellow in just because I want it to be a little bit brighter than the other one. And then all I'm going to be doing is taking this green, still using my large round brush in this case, and I'm going to go over the tops of the trees, blending in some of this lighter shade. Feel free to also grab a little bit of white if you find that'll make it even brighter, be able to stand out more. Totally fine. This just adds a bit of a dimension and texture to our trees so that they're not just one color, because we know trees are multiple colors and leaves tend to have many different shades, especially with sunlight going through them, especially in a painting like this. We're just really trying to capture that essence of a tree in some sunlight. So feel free to add more to this if you guys would like. Feel free to add, you know, a plane, a boat, a person, whatever you guys would like to do. But once you are completely finished and you're looking at it and you think it looks pretty good, my last step is to have you guys sign your paintings. So to do that, I like to use my small detail brush, and for this one I'm going to use just some pure white paint, and I'm going to initial mine over in this bottom right hand corner. And that's it! You're done, guys! Good job! Thank you all for hanging out with me today on Splash Studio Online for this wonderful painting California sunrise. Feel free to post your finished pieces. We would love to see them, so definitely be sure to tag us on Instagram, Twitter, whatever platform you guys decide to post them to. And stay tuned for more painting tutorials, and I hope you guys are all staying safe. Thank you all so much for your support.